So the rewind on the conversation is that we think that Claire's next book should be, after your obvious technological faux pas that you commit on a regular basis, and quite frankly, that Claire probably just props up your everyday existence.
Yeah.
We suggested the book Driven to the Hedge as the title. and then we also...
I warned him.
And then we thought she'd probably write a book more like the O.J. Simpson one. If I did it, this is how I would have done it.
Which somehow led us into John and Lorena Bobbitt, and the one who'd been his penis was defenestrated by his wife.
My wife hasn't done that to me, so I can't see how there is any equation between me and that poor man who got himself emasculated.
The book tour's not over yet, is it? So,
well, that is true. Do you know,
there's time.
We have been getting on ridiculously well, because, I mean, we've been to lots of different places signing books, and we went to a lovely little village, one of the wool towns, which is called Clare, down in South Suffolk, and it's spelt the same as my Claire. And I just thought it was hugely funny to get Claire to stand in front of every single sign. So, like you've got with a co-op, it's got Claire's co-op.
I loved that.
Yeah. So I had made her stand in front of a co-op and take a film of her in front of Claire's co-op. I made it every single thing. I mean, nearly every shop in Clare.
You really know how to treat a woman, don't you? And
I was going to say, this is not helping your case, and this is supporting our idea that she's going to kill you.
Well, this is the thing.
And we're on her side.
This is the thing, you see, because, you see, I think it's hugely funny to make her stand and pose in front of, like, co-op, tea shops, everything that's got Claire, the town sign, the town hall. I mean, everywhere that's got Claire. And Claire, stand there. It'd be really funny because I was going to make a little film and then I can go and put it. And I managed to get Clare Town by the B-52s as the backing track on the Instagram thing. And I laughed. Everybody else, including Claire and you two, and literally everybody else who knows it, thinking, what an arsehole. Why has he done that to his wife? But look, I found it funny, so therefore I ran with it.
I'm happy you're happy.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to see that you haven't wasted your time since our last recording together, that you've managed to fill your days, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. I tell you what, though, talking about the last recording, I'm going to jump straight in and say very well done. Very well done. You two were ridiculously professional. You drew Paddy Galbraith out of his slightly defensive, this is how I speak on Radio 4, all the other things where he has sort of towed a party line. You managed to really get him, warts and all, that this subject of access and who goes where, you drew it out of him. It was, I listened to it and thought, who are these two professionals and why is it like this when I'm not around? I mean, all I can think, right, I'm obviously thinking, right, it must be something when I'm around you go all girly and giddy. That's all I can think, that happened. I don't quite know why, but it was very good. Well done.
A friend sent me a message yesterday, which was along the lines of, great episode with Paddy. Did he know he was being recorded? And did he know that people would listen to it?
Yeah.
Because maybe that's what it was. He just thought we were having a chat because nobody listens to this. But the 6 people who listened to it did hear him.
I think we're up to 8 now.
Oh, 8. Oh, yeah, we're 8 with patrons, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, do you know, isn't that though the secret of why they reckon that Parky and Wogan were such good chat show hosts? Because they were able to disarm the guests and made them forget that they were actually there to go and sort of be guarded and tell them what their PRs had told them to say. So therefore, we have the rural Britain's answer to Parkinson and Wogan. Can you do that? Jeez, the sausages have arrived.
Which one's which? Which one am I?
Now that's a good question. That's one I think.
How offensive can we be?
Yes, let's go and think. Okay, so I think Callum's Parky. I think you're Parkinson because I just see there's a slight sort of element of you, brushing your trousers and getting a bit sort of gushy when famous actresses come about.
Wow.
Whereas when it comes to, Richard, he's got that slight. It's the same thing, Wogan.
Smooth.
Well, no, Wogan was Irish. Richard's Cornish. It's that Celtic thing, He's got that slight twinkle in his eye, Whereas
I can't do proper Irish because I just go straight to Belfast because I just go straight to saying, so it is. And then,
I just go straight to guess me, I'm Irish, sort of straight into Simpsons Leprechaun. As soon as you try and do Irish.
I'm starting to, side with the IRA trying to kill you, Richard, now, at this point in the podcast. I think they had a point.
Well,
maybe.
yeah. I mean, they had to join the queue.
And talking of which, I've had some interesting feedback from the Moreland Matters podcast as well, our bonus episode. Because people who listened right to the end discovered that I don't really care if grouse shooting disappears as long as we maintain the ecological management, which has polarised some people.
No, do you know?
I'm all right. Yeah, I said it, so I'm all right with it.
I am of the opinion that you are right, is that if grouse shooting disappears and we kept the wondrousness of that moor that you went to. So the only person who hasn't been there, unfortunately, is poor old Callum. So next time, Cal, you're going. He's
got another invite. They've been told we have to take him.
Yeah, I mean his ears do go pop if he goes north of Watford. So I mean, he's going to be in trouble.
Well,
but do you know what? I mean, I get what you're saying. Is that yes, we are not given a God-given right to shoot stuff, but the obvious answer is that, okay then if you don't want to see grouse shooting, then who is going to stump up the cash to do the levels of management that are required to do it? It's exactly the same, with hunting. I was on the phone the other day because I'm going to be doing a rather cool project with a lovely lady who is the curator of the
where's this going?
British Sporting Arts Trust, and we're going to do a thing where we're looking at deeper into the landscapes behind the great sporting art, because that will tell us a lot about what the landscape was like at the time and how it shifts with the movement of farming, finance, British views about how we produce, how self-sufficient we are, etc., etc. Right? And the fascinating thing that I think with what she was talking about there was that how when you look at these landscapes, where you got these hunting scenes, so the works of John Fernley to the works of Lionel Edwards, and you now go to so many of those places where all those chaps are galloping across beautiful grassland, and a lot of these places are now ploughed up. And one of the reasons they're ploughed up, and if you look at some of the Leicestershire landscape that I remember only 30 years ago, is now an arable land. The hedges are no longer maintained. And okay, farming's shifted a bit, but it's because hunting's been banned. And they no longer hunt foxes. And you no longer get 200 people out with a quorn paying top dollar to go and chase after a pack of foxhounds. Now, you can argue about the rights and wrongs of fox hunting. Is it cruel? Is it barbaric? Is it the worst of human nature? You can argue that toss. Was as they said in Father Ted, that's an ecumenical matter. But it's unassailable that without hunting, we have lost a lot of the beauties and wondrous and diversity of our landscape. And so therefore, I'm quite with you, Richard. Yeah, okay, go ahead and ban grouse shooting. Yeah. Who's going to cough up the reddies, though?
Well, as that episode came out, or not long after, the Moorland Association released some numbers. So they revisited a study, revisited a site in Northumberland, which they had been predator control there, and then they stopped it. And in that area, so when carrion crows and red foxes were being managed, ground nesting birds saw their breeding success triple. But after 10 years of no predator control, the carrion crow numbers had risen by 78%, fox presence more than double, so that was up by 127%. And during that same period, red grouse fell by 71%, golden plover by 81%, snipe by 76%. Black grouse and grey partridge disappeared entirely from the study areas, and the habitat didn't change. And then there was sort of an observation that that's been mirrored in other sites around the place, and it's pretty damning. It's the one factor was changed, and you undid all of the good work that was done before. Yeah. And it's such a shocking outcome from just changing one thing, which is contentious, and that thing shouldn't be contentious because the numbers again and again show that predator leg of the three-legged stool is so vitally important. Otherwise, all you're doing is creating a better kebab shop for foxes.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's cheer it up. Callum, say something stupid.
No, I'm just listening. I was just thinking, like, you both give opinions, and then I know so little about it. I've not really got anything to add.
Well, that thing you did, that posted today with the bird ringing.
Yeah, that was if you haven't seen it,
that's linked into all this, isn't it?
Go to CountrySlide Pod at CountrySlide Pod on Instagram, or I also put it out on my Twitter as well, so you can have a look there. But yeah, we went. That was, so for anyone that doesn't know, that was me and my son went out bird ringing with two people that have been doing it for over 50 years, and the opportunity actually came through this podcast. Paul Tout said, "You live here, you should give these people a shout." So there was a guy called Alan and Paul who are brilliant, and they took us bird ringing. And for anybody that doesn't know, that is putting a big mist net up and then catching all the different birds. And you do that from sort of 6 a.m. till, I think we were there till like 11. So you do like a 5-hour session, and you see what birds you catch in what density. You put a ring on them, you work out the numbers. They sex them, weigh the wing, measure the wings, weigh the wings. Then they weigh them, so they know the health of the populations. They know if they've got, resident chiff-chaffs, or they've got blue tits, or all of these different things. So yeah, that was a really insightful thing, and I asked lots and lots of questions about how the place had changed over. I think they started in 1972 when he first went bird rigging there.
Good grief! Good grief! Did you ask him, Callum, about? I mean, if we go back to what you were the last week's podcast with Patrick, one of the things that I'm so against extended right to roam is because of disturbance of wildlife, particularly in more challenged areas like we have in my part of the world and yours, where there is human pressure or habitats are pressured by size. You think of my hedges, floristic margins, then the crop starts. I believe that there is not space. Did they mention anything about what they thought about disturbance by humans?
So one of the interesting things, this is a nature reserve. They said as soon as they opened up the public access around the reserve, they saw a decline in birds that were resident there. No. So that was unprompted. That was brought up. But there's all sorts of things. They were talking about like fine details of entomology that they don't even understand, but certain insects that will probably be in decline have a huge impact on the birds that are there. and what migrate and what make it and what don't and what pushes them out. They said something we covered before. Now we've got the supplementary bird feeders and stuff like that. So then all the birds are having the same contact on a platform around a single feeder. Well, that is a hotbed for disease. I think, what did we do? There's a variety of diseases.
Trichomoniasis is one.
Yeah, that's one of the main ones.
Yeah.
And I think the corvids were often
vectors.
have that, and they spread it.
Yeah, they're vectors
It's
of
that
it.
it's that weird thing. If you have a couple of cats at free range in your garden and you feed the birds, you're probably sort of wiping out your own chances of doing things, unless you have loads of other stuff around at the same time, lots more habitat and lots more feeding opportunities for them. If you just have a back garden somewhere in suburbia, 2 cats and a bird feeder, you're probably doing worse for nature than a bit of scrub down by a railway embankment or something.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely true. I mean, I think
that's depressing.
Alex Lees, I think, from Manchester Metropolitan University, who's the head of ecology there, he is really right on about, we really must stop feeding birds in our garden, because it's not just that we're spreading diseases. And say, for example, greenfinches are particularly susceptible. So you get these booms and busts of greenfinches that readily feed off feeders. But, I mean, I have 3 bird feeders. I can see them through my study window now. But I put Virkon E, dip them in that each time they empty, and then clean them out. Most people don't, to be perfectly honest, and they go, oh, well, poor little birds, they haven't got any food. But it's actually the death knell for the greenfinch. So we kill them with kindness. And I think it's one of those curious things, is that if a scientist says it, it's almost like, oh, God, well, they would say that. If a gamekeeper turns around and says, well, this factor is having a negative impact on a species, people go, oh, God, he would say that. But when these 2 guys have been bird ringing, Alan and Paul, who have been bird ringing since, the 70s, you should heed what they say, because they're doing this for the sheer love of it, aren't they, Callum?
So the chaffinch was a particular one that they said they had 30 pairs nesting at that place before, and now they don't have any. They haven't seen them. So they're gone. Or what was some of the others? Yellow wagtails.
Right.
They said they were once abundant, and now you don't see them. Dunnocks are pretty rare. Lots of things were dropping off. Yeah, they used to have chaffinches breeding there all the time, and now they've got none.
Yeah.
But that's... and also the... another thing was the lesser black-back gulls now breeding on rooftops. And they used to have a lot of terns.
Death from above.
They've got all of those as well. So now they're not doing half the stuff. The whole conservation has changed. They've got I think it was the terns that were turning up later, and by the time they had turned up, the gulls had already taken up most of the habitat. They put like rafts out for them. So what they do is they save a raft behind, and then wait for when the terns start to turn up, so then they can push a raft out for the terns to go on. And then they have to then put a cage over the top, because the eggs actually get predated on by otters as well. So there's...
It's like the animals of Farthing Wood are ganging up on them.
I know.
Yeah.
It's all going on in Callum's part of the world. It's like, we take the mickey out of him that he lives on the urban fringe, but actually nature is trying to cling on as much as it can. And yet there are factors which so often seem to be, what we do. I think it's been published today, which is what, the 6th today. My piece in Scribehound, where I'm talking about Operation Turtle Dove and what we get up to here in Suffolk. And, one of the things I really hadn't quite gleaned until I went back, I've been feeding turtle doves here for I don't know how many years and managing habitats for them. But one of the things that Eliza Leet, the Operation Turtle Dove Officer for Suffolk, told me was that back in 1960 and through to the 70s, is that the turtle dove, they only laid 2 eggs in a crap nest. I mean, honestly, if you look at a turtle dove nest, and I've seen quite a few, it literally
Twigs,
looks like,
isn't it?
it's about 15 sticks that you threw up into a tree and went, oh yeah, that'll do. That's fine. I mean, how on earth they ever...
Low effort Friday afternoon
It
nest.
really is.
They also
chin it
they
off.
also nest on the stupidest places.
Yeah.
We had a collar-neck dove that nested on the sky dish, and it was the most precarious nest you've ever seen in your life. And you just thought, oh, come on,
Hey.
like, you could put so much more effort.
I've got a collar dove nest outside my bedroom window where they've nested on the security light. So every single time anyone comes in, that illuminates them. So any passing sort of sparrowhawk goes, "Ooh, dinner is served." But also is that obviously this is an old-fashioned halogen thing. So the old chicks must be going, "Oh, it's nice and warm in here. Ah, too hot, too hot, too hot." But yeah, I mean they are useless. But turtle doves, that they are just lazy nesters, and Eliza explained as to why that they do that is because back in 1960 they would have 3 nests per pair per year, because there was enough habitat around for them to go and try that. Yes, they would do crap nests, but they've only got a small window of time, really, because they arrive here in very late April, early May, and then they have to breed, and then they're going back to sub-Saharan West Africa by about August. So they haven't got time to mess around, but they used to have 3 nests per year, of which they lay only a mere measly 2 eggs. So therefore you got that. She said because of the loss of habitat, because they'll move to a different nest site for the next nest and then the next one, is that now rather than having 3 nesting attempts, they'll have 1 nesting attempt. So therefore, rather than having 6 potential viable eggs per year, they've now got 2. And so therefore, when you think that they're A, making a crap nest, and there are far more predators around than there used to be, and there is less habitat, less food sources, it's no wonder that their numbers in 40 years have gone from abundant to red listed. But the good news is that I write about is that actually, courtesy of the fact that we are doing good things now, is that they think there's a 40% increase in their numbers on the flyways coming here. And so we're actually seeing an upturn. But Callum's point about how you supplementary feed, I supplementary feed here, but you are not recommended at all in any shape or form to put food out for them in a sort of a pile or a feeder or anything like that. I have to go and wander up and down the driveway, crap old sort of lumpy, bumpy driveway to my house. I have to go out with a feed scoop and spread it all along there. So you're lessening the chance of spreading disease. Although I have to say, every morning I gently open my curtains at about 5 o'clock when my middle-aged bladder says, "Time to wake up, Negus." And I look out and I think, will there be any turtle doves feeding out there? I haven't heard them calling. And I look out and there's about 53 wood pigeons all in the line of this thing. 72 jackdaws, a couple of stock doves who are going, "This is great, I'm amber listed, so I'm all right." There's a couple of old fantail pigeons that I think come from someone who's a pigeon fancier down the road. There's a couple of collar doves, and then rooks come in every once in a while just to see what's going on. They try and pick up some of that tiny little seed with their massive beaks and slightly fail. And it's very funny because there is this conga line of birds on my feed ride, other than the turtle doves that I'm putting it there for. But hell, yeah, they can do what they like here.
With your onanistic bird feeding.
Yes, it is. I mean,
Three people got that. I've got to stop doing obscure jokes.
Well, shall I tell you, though, something? That is an interesting one. You see, I am feeding here, and this is something where your point of the, if grouse shooting went tomorrow, it's not the grouse shooting that you'd miss. The thing that you would miss would be all the other wildlife, because if you like, being species specific, so say you're looking after, or you're trying to conserve the red grouse, you're trying to conserve the turtle dove, or you're trying to conserve the grey partridge, right? Now that might be a wholly selfish act, right? You're focusing on those, but they are not only barometer species, but they're umbrella species. So if you look after them, everything else goes, thanks very much. So why would you want to ban grouse shooting when all, as you've seen up there on that moor, up on that Moorland Matters episode that you did, and we all know, why would you want to ban grouse shooting when there is clearly so many positives for so many other species? It clearly just leads me to the single conclusion that your only wish to ban grouse shooting is because you don't like posh blokes in silly trousers shooting things for pleasure. Well, dear oh dear.
Well,
quite a reasonable thing to dislike.
there were many things discussed up at that meeting up on the moorland, and it's Chatham House rules, so I can't, say what was said and who said it. I am going to break one confidence, though, softly, which it transpires that our co-host here, Callum, has been going up to the hosts of other rural podcasts when he meets them for the first time and saying to them, we've got more downloads than you, or our podcast is better than yours. This is when he meets them for the first time. Is this true, Callum, that you're just doing drive-by one-upmanship on other media professionals? The way it was told to me was, he said, hi, I'm Callum, we've got more listeners than you.
I mean, I wouldn't know the listener stats, but the rankings, we were number one. You don't get higher than number one, mate. So I just try harder. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's positive reinforcement. That's like how you train a dog. What we're doing is that Callum is spreading a bit of love and positive reinforcement to other noble podcasts.
I do actually quite like the podcast.
What's next? Is he just going to go up to Claire Balding and tell her, we've got more knob gags than you, or?
Oh, we got a better episode about horses than she'll probably ever make.
Yeah.
How many tales has Claire Balding told about a horse jizzing in someone's mouth? How many tales?
15. It's literally what she's done is she's listened to this and now she takes it for her own. Honestly, I met Claire Balding
just
quite a few
creaming
times.
it off the top, isn't it?
Oh, what? God, what? Honestly, it's like being back in 1973.
This is a really serious podcast. That was really lowering the tone, mate.
It is. This is why I can't work in certain industries, which I'm not allowed to say why here.
I've started doing training again with my under-15s cricket team, and it's quite funny.
You're not under 15.
I know, but I'm the coach. But it is quite amusing, is that for a start, I'm so old and stiff these days that I was trying to go and bowl a ball to them, and I was like telling them off for being a bit ring rusty. So I bowled a ball down. No, you want to do it like this, kids? And I bowled.
You've started with old and stiff, and then ring rusty. Come on, let's try and pick our wordage properly.
Is this like Act 1 in this story about this embittered coach who's come down from the big city to coach the ragtag bunch of under 15s?
That's the
and
next
he'll
book.
learn how to love again.
That's the next book. That's my village romp.
That's the mighty.
That's part of my village romp.
That's the Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
Are you going to try and explain the plot of Blindside to us?
The Bad News Bears.
I honestly quite fancy the idea of writing a village romp. Have I said this before? The book
We
number 2.
started it.
I don't know. I fancy doing it under a nom de plume. I'm going to call myself something like Tilly. I think Tilly is quite a good name.
Richard Begas.
No, like Tilly Finch, or something like that, with a hyphen that is slightly curly, and I'll go and no capital letters on the Finch and 2 Fs, and I'm going to write a village romp about how that somebody called, I don't know, Totty arrives in a village from London after having been dumped by her nasty hedge fund manager partner of 22 years, and she now arrives in this Suffolk village, and then she meets this sort of the parson and the farmer and the gamekeeper, and then this sort of aloof hedge layer sweeps her off her feet. Yeah, exactly. Hallmark. I want to write that because I'd like
a Hallmark
to think,
Christmas film.
I want to
Is this
think,
hedge layer aloof, but also sort of smelling of port and badger piss?
Exactly. Yes. He's got slightly a crap
Has he got
beard.
really bad Suffolk internet?
Yeah, that's it.
Has he got hair that looks like a turtle dove made it?
Yeah, that's it. Hair suitable for a turtle dove to nest in. Right, and then what will happen is that, as luck would have it, there'll be all these sort of things where you can, she was married to a hedge fund manager, but she only found love with a hedge layer. And I think it would be an absolute seller. But I think, I'd like to think that Words from the Hedge is quite a, it's a deep thinking book. I've thought a lot about what I've done, and it's got a definite message, and there's a lot of cerebral effort in it. This one, I want to just literally write crap and just write every single cliche that I can do.
So this gag-laden anecdote that you've just made us go through was basically a sneaky way to get in the bloody book.
You saw through.
Well, there's only one copy of the book that you just pass around that everyone does photos of.
No,
because I've not seen a second copy.
I gave one to Callum. Now I'll tell you
Where's
this.
my book?
Okay, I'm going to tell you this. Now,
when did I pay for mine?
Okay, right. I'm going to tell you something. This is very interesting because I think
Bought a first book from a bookshop, me.
I think a lot.
I thought I'd set fire in a bookshop.
I think a lot of people who listen to this, right, would be interested to know what it's like in the publishing world. And basically, what it seems to me is...
They might not, but here we go.
19th of February 2024.
Yeah, I know.
I paid for mine.
Look, I had to.
Okay.
My mechanic, Edward, he popped round today because he's going on holiday for the first time in 5 years without any kids going with him, right? He's going to Egypt tomorrow where it's 36 degrees. Cool, blimey, Greta. You don't want to keep coming over here. You want to go to Egypt. It's bloody hot over there. Anyway, he came on, he said, I pledged for my advanced copy of Words from the Hedge back in 2023, and he said, and it still hasn't arrived yet. So I've got in a secret place, I've got a stash of what they call the author copies that they let you have a stash of, so you can sell them sort of on the sly. And I had to give him one because the poor old boy said, I never read books, but I want to read yours. So I had to go and give him one from our secret stash because I just felt so guilty because he'd coughed up 30 quid back, I mean, God, Boris Johnson was Prime Minister when he paid for that. And that went well.
Miss those times.
Yeah, I know. Happy days.
And next week I get to see you in person, possibly before my copy has arrived from your publisher, and then act as your roadie.
No.
I think is the deal at the moment.
No. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write you one, a little...
By hand.
On a napkin. I was going to
by
write
hand,
too long didn't read on a
head of a
napkin.
pin.
I'm going to write you a nice little bit in the middle just to go and sort of show you that how much you mean to me, Richard. Because I wrote one for Callum, a little bit of an inscription in there. So when he's like, in 40 years' time, when he's drooling into his bait box, he can look down and he can think,
2 years' time.
Who's this geezer? And why did he write that? It'll be nice. But I'm going to write you a special inscription in one if it hasn't arrived. I don't know. I just don't like publishers now. Besides, they're all gits. I want a publisher who just does what they say. I mean, if you went to a mechanic, right, and you went and said, can you fix my car because the engine's making a funny noise? And what they did, and they took your wheels off, you'd be bloody cross, wouldn't you? Anyway, what are we going to talk about today? Oh, I know what we're going to talk about.
I don't know. You were just going to finish killing your publishing deal.
Yeah.
No,
But
I don't want to be published by them anymore. They're a ghastly bunch of people. They don't do what they say.
Oh,
Well, I'm still traumatized from my trip to Screwfix earlier.
Hey? Why? What happened?
Well, I went there, and the two guys, there's because as Bill Bailey said, Screwfix is a bit like sort of the magical land of dreams. We've got the little bit you go into, and then there's the massive warehouse at the back.
Yeah.
And there's the counter where they stand
Like
behind.
Argos, but for real men.
Yeah. And I went in, and there were the two guys who were normally behind the counter were both on the public side, which is a bit unsettling, and they were fiddling around refilling one of the bins that's by the tills that try and sell you an extra tape measure or something like that. And one of the guys there, I mean, obviously they don't pay very well in that particular branch of Screwfix because he couldn't afford a belt.
Oh.
And there was not just a bit of crevice, it was full hair, the full canyon. I mean,
could get Unibond for that.
it was
Usually,
so
if you just do a light
close
skim
to the critical area being visible. I think if put an air compressor across it, I could have blown across him like a flute, and it would have. It wasn't what I needed to see, but also I still don't know why people do that. Why don't you have why is your ass on show? You're a
It
grown
depends.
man.
If you're shaped like a potato with tits, you'll find that trousers, because your arse and your back are also the same shape, you find that trousers just don't
They just
really
morph into each other like an
There
egg.
isn't a waist for it to stick onto, so they will naturally be somewhere around your upper thigh.
That's why that's what braces are for. Then you just have like a different set of rigging.
Yeah. I went to a cricket club do in Southwold the other day, and Graham Gooch was the sort of guest of honour there. And this is so typically.
Why can't you have normal stories? Why can't you have normal
there you go.
anecdotes? Why is there always something?
This is quite a cool
Why is
anecdote.
there always
actually.
a Gooch?
Right. So Graham Gooch was there, and also Dusty Miller. So two England and Essex legends.
That's a fly, isn't it?
Who?
Dusty Miller.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Yeah.
Was Graham Gooch in the middle?
Don't get that one.
Oh.
I don't get that one. Anyway,
Ask Charlie.
okay.
I said one to Richard earlier, and he didn't get it.
No.
Richard was naming all the shops that he made Claire stand next to, and he said, Claire next to insert whatever, and I said, well, that sounds like a strange name for that kind of shop, but I'll allow it. And he just totally missed it.
Do you know? I think it's because
I normally get mine from Love Honey.
I think it's because I don't think it's my advancing years. I just think it's because in Suffolk, we sort of laugh at people. If they get kicked in the head by a heifer, that's a joke for like 3 weeks.
Good old Suffolk joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Boy.
But we had a very good Suffolk incident, actually, because I went to this charity do in Southwold for the Southwold Cricket Club. I was invited to, and we listened to Graham Gooch and Dusty Miller, who was doing a very, very funny spiel about his England and Derbyshire and Essex cricket career. But the main thing was that they'd managed to get them there because they were opening the new all-weather wicket that had been built. But they got Graham Gooch all the way over to go and cut this ribbon, but they were just literally cutting the ribbon over a bit of random grass because the bloke who was supposed to go and put the all-weather wicket in had forgotten to do it. But they went, oh, well, we've got Graham Gooch coming now, so we're just going to go and so therefore he's cutting a ribbon literally over a piece of Southwold Common and say, this is where the wicket will be at some time in the future. So basically, I think this is what we're seeing is the current government's policy on everything, is they're just going to get random sports stars from the 70s and 80s to cut ribbons and say, this could be really good here, but you probably won't see it in your lifetime. Anyway, I can't remember why I was talking about going there other than the fact that Graham Gooch was cutting a ribbon over a random piece of rabbit shit strewn grass. But it was quite
Well, if you don't know...
I think dementia was the reason. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I can't remember.
Brilliant.
I genuinely can't
That's
remember.
great content. For God's sake, why do I sit here every week after week, going through this? Why is this my life? Ray Mears doesn't have to put up with this crap.
Yeah. Hey.
Also, I don't know how did the audience enjoy this. Like, it goes from a very serious conversation that I think, at some point am I going to get someone from Right to Rome writing me a legal letter for potentially the stuff we put out, to Richard basically having a senile moment, and we're just enabling.
Well,
It's elderly abuse at this point, isn't it?
Wheel him out.
I mean,
I'm just the
I never
foil.
envisioned, like, I could put care worker on my CV and nobody would possibly bat an eyelid. They'd be like, oh, yeah.
When we go to the game fair, that's what it's going to be. We're going to have to sort of wrap it up at about 5 o'clock because we've got to have you back in the home by 6.
Do you know,
It's jelly tonight. You like jelly.
The funny thing is,
You can eat that even with his teeth out.
when I get put in front of an audience, I go, bing! I'm like an old thespian. Go, oh, right, I've got to go and do all my my things now. And I come out with it all. Sometimes I sit here and I start on a story thinking, this is really to the point about what you've just been saying. And then I go off at a random tangent. And then I forget now. I've sort of arrived in a cul-de-sac and go, oh, dear. I've got to have to put it in reverse and go all the way back again. And then by the time I've got back again, I've just forgotten what I was talking about anyway.
And then you just go, let's just default to something about Keir Starmer being incompetent.
Yes, do you know, it's a default setting for 95% of the British population now.
You're a little bit like one of those soundboards.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you used to get one of those little buttons, and you press one, and you think, oh, I don't remember playing this one. And then all of a sudden it's like, jerk, you jerk.
All right.
Oh, dear.
I've got a question for you then. As somebody who does, you do the public speaking and you say the same, you might go to different events and say effectively the same thing, and you've got your own, because I do this with some of my work, and particularly the foraging wild food stuff. You're standing in front of a group and you know what beats to hit, and you know if I build up to this bit and then I can get this gag in here. Do you ever have an out-of-body experience while you're doing it? So you end up sort of hovering in the corner of the room, looking down on your own body, speaking to the crowd, going, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And you just become sort of self-aware on a secondary level, and you know that it's going to catch up with you. At some point, you'll just stop speaking because now you've become too self-aware of what you're doing, and you have to try and scrabble to get back into your body.
Yes.
Has that ever happened to you?
Yes, very much
good.
so.
It's not just me.
No, it's not just you.
I've just realised there's a story I've not told before. Anywhere in pub, anywhere that's recorded anyway. It's about... Okay, so about this time last year, I was asked, can you come and do a talk at Summer Fete? Well, actually, no. Can you come and do a foraging guided walk thing at the Summer Fete, this big house on the edge of Shropshire? Yeah, fine. And then, it's getting closer to the event and you haven't really heard anything, and then you wonder if it's still going ahead and have I got this day back to myself. So I booked in a foraging course with people in the morning, and then a couple of days before the event, they got in touch and said, oh, yeah, you're still coming for this thing? Yeah, fine, I've committed. Which charity is it for? Oh, bloody hell, all right, man. So we did this foraging course, and the people on that course, I think there's like 10 people, and there was somebody there who was from the village where this thing was happening. So I mentioned it to him. I said, oh, I'm basically in your back garden this evening doing a walk there. You can come along if you want. So we got to this place that night, and they had the flyers on the gate for what was going on, and there's no mention of me because they forgot to put it in, and they forgot to advertise it, and they forgot to put anything to do with me. So I said, well, I'll just come and wander around and get drunk then. I don't need to do anything. Oh, no, you still need to do the walk. Right. Just stand here, and I'll get someone to announce you. So I stood under this tree for about 20 minutes, and no one came. And then the organizer came back over and said, right, can you announce yourself? But you have to do it now because the band's about to start playing again. So can you run over there to the PA thing and announce yourself?
If anybody wants to come for a walk with me, would you?
With your reputation?
It was worse than that shit, but it's for the charity. The charity, they need you. I was like, oh, fine, I'm easily led. So I went over and sprinted over to this PA thing. There's the usual box, like old horse box with a microphone. And I get there, and someone hands me the microphone, and I go, if you would like to come for a foraging walk, I'll be over there under the oak tree. And then gave it back to this bemused jazz band, who then carried on playing for half an hour, and nobody came over to there. And then the organizer came back and said, right, well, we've organised for you to be on before the play. What do you mean the play? Well, over there, there's this Shakespeare company are going to be doing this, one of his plays, in front of the castle bit, in front of the moat. But you can be on stage, and can you do a talk there instead? Yeah, okay. Can I just go home? No, you've got to be here. We've told the charity you're doing. All right. So then I was on this little stage thing in front of the people who'd set up their chairs early for the evening Shakespeare in the Park performance right at the end at sunset, with no PA, no amplification at all, and nobody knew who I was, what I was there for, and there was about 50 or 60 people all in their chairs eating, getting pissed and full of Pims and things. And I had to go and see the Shakespeare players and say, look, I've been told I've got to do this talk. I'll be very quick. I'll be 5 minutes, and then I'll go, because no one knows who I am. And they were, all right, yeah, they're very, very good. Can we watch? Yeah, fine, go and watch. I'll be over here. And then this bloke turned up who'd been from the course, and he brought his whole family. He brought like 20 people, all to see me come and do this foraging walk, because he'd been on this amazing course that morning. So now I've got 50 people who don't know who I am, some really earnest people from London who are there to do Shakespeare, and this one bloke who had tricked into coming to this bloody fete, all there in front of me, and I, unamplified, going, right, my name's Richard. I teach people about wild food. You don't know who I am, but I'm here to do a talk, and I've just realised there are no plants here, so I can't point at anything. What am I going to do? Right, I'm going to talk about how foraging made our brains recognise patterns and stuff like that. I need some volunteers, right? You and you'll do. And I got this thing I do about human timelines and how stuff works. But when you're giving a talk and it becomes apparent that the people in the front row all hate you with every inch and every fibre of their being. They want to kill you. And they're just staring at you. And it's then, well, I'm going to involve you in this now. I'm going to bring up the fact that you hate me as part of this, and I bring it into the psychological pattern of the whole thing. And Amy's got this on film somewhere, and I might see if I can get it out to the patrons. But I didn't just die on my arse. I
took everyone with you.
I took everyone with me. But
Yeah,
these
that's
two
the way to
old
do
women
it.
at the back who'd had far too much to drink, or not enough, I don't know which way it went, they started cheering me on. And then it was like sort of two plump female Statler and Waldorfs giving me sort of a bit of, yeah, come on, yeah, do it again, yeah.
Do the hate.
Screw them.
Do
You
the
can
hate
do
bit.
it. And do the hate, yeah, do it again. And yeah, it wasn't good.
I had an instant of hate. Sorry, have you not finished that bit?
You probably had several.
No, I just finished the whole thing by going to go and buy some gin and sitting in an oldie car park drinking. It was.
I was the most.
Try yourself.
I was the most hated man at Stour Head once, which I do. You like trees, Richard? Go to Stour Head. It's near Warminster, and it's fantastic. I mean, it's got superb trees there. I think it's National Mistrust owned now, but anyway, it was a beautiful thing, right? And I'd been away, and I had a bunch of quite smart friends, and they invited me to this very swanky do. And Stour Head has not only got these beautiful arboretums and woods and specimen trees there, it's also got, when it was a stately home owned by I don't know who, that has lots and lots of follies about, right? And there was this very, very swanky event of an evening where it was sort of like white linen tablecloth picnic type do. And out on the island, they'd put this orchestra and some opera singers all lit up. And it looked very, very smart. Now, I'd been away in the army, and so my pals who were civvies, they'd all invited me to this thing. And I said, I haven't got time to get the fancy dress, because the theme was Regency, right, to go with this sort of Baroque music that was being played on this thing. And so it gave girls an opportunity to sort of go and wear sort of slightly Marie Antoinette dresses and all this stuff. And all my pals were wandering around looking like, the Sun King or something like that, with wigs and stuff on and sort of breeks and tight socks.
That's what I imagine boarding school is like.
Well, exactly.
Like the whole time.
Exactly.
It's not a million miles off.
So I said to my pal, can you sort me out for some fancy dress because I'm going to be on my minutes, right? And I got back there and he said, here's your fancy dress. And I unpacked it and he said it was all they had left in the fancy dress shop, right? Now, he said it was a ghost outfit.
Oh,
right?
God.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
This is going to be patrons only.
This ghost outfit consisted of a large white
Out-pointed.
robe, yes, and a sort of a white mask and a pointed conical hat.
Did they hand you a cross? Did they hand you a lighter and some petrol?
So I wore this.
Go, he had that in his bag already, thankfully.
So I put this thing on and walked around Stour Head, and they'd lighted all these paths up. I'm imagining in my head I'm going to go there and definitely going to pull, because I'm the only one who could pull off the full bro brummel. And I'm thinking that my pals will doubtless have got me something that's going to show off my well-turned calf. But instead, I'm walking around like I might belong to a certain clan organization that came from the southern states of America. And I'm walking around and I just see all these people staring at me. I'm looking through my little eye holes of my mask. And I found myself at one point trying to explain to someone, no, I'm not in the clan. I'm from a Spanish sect of the Catholic Church.
I'm a ghost.
God.
Yeah. So now I know what.
If you just do that, you're
Oh
fine.
yeah. I mean, you don't want to. Walking around in a uniform in Belfast is nothing compared with going dressed as a member of a certain white supremacist organisation at Stour Head. And then when I just took my conical hat off and face mask, I was just walking around with what appeared to be sort of like I was. Well, you were chunky Jesus, Richard. I was just sort of like emaciated Jesus. No, it didn't work well. I now know what hate is.
Well, the rural places can be quite dangerous. I mean, there's kind of a folk horror element to the British countryside still going on, that things can just turn chilling in one go. I mean, I've told this story before on the Wild Food People podcast, on the extra bits, I think. But when we went to the game fair last year to do the recordings, we ended up, for some reason, staying miles away in Hook Norton.
Oh, yeah.
So we went to the pub in Hook Norton, which is the only one, I think. And when we booked in for the campsite bit, when we went to book in, they said, "Are you here for Aunt Sally?" No, what? I'll go camping. Well, just pay my 10 quid. Oh, no, Aunt Sally, book in over there. Oh, right. It turns out Aunt Sally is basically violent Skittles instead of... You throw an oblong of wood at some Skittles, and it's a big deal in that area. Someone's going to write into the podcast now about the Aunt Sally thing, but put up the tents, got a couple of pints, and went and sat in the beer garden watching this huge crowd turn up for the Aunt Sally tournament. And it turns out some sort of playoffs, and they had this really elaborate setup with some lights over it and this big advertising hoarding for the sponsors and things, and all these crowds. And there were two lanes.
Are we going to sponsor?
Well, I think we should get our own game.
Oh, sorry.
But there were two games on the go. There was a practice one, and then there was the main one, which was the tournament thing. And then they were going to have the big tournament later on that night after it got dark, when the big crowds arrived, and they were going to have two next to each other. And I was asking one of the guys, what the hell is this game? Where does it come from? All very friendly. And he went, "Oh, yeah, you can have a go if you want. Have a go with this one." So I threw it. I sort of missed, and then I had another go. And I thought, right, okay. The technique seems to be sort of throw it and drop it in above, rather than coming in from the side, because you're trying to knock it off without without hitting the thing it's attached to. So I thought, well, I'll just go in high. So I threw it high, and I clattered off the lights above it, and they all shook. And it was almost a record screech. And about 200 people all went deathly silent. immediately, and they all turned to look at me. And the guy who loaned me his set of sticks, or whatever they're called, came up to me and went, I think it's time you went home, innit? Best get on now. And it turns out that this was a big deal. If I knocked the lights out, that would have been the tournament over for the night. And people had travelled from all over Oxfordshire to come and play Aunt Sally at this one thing. So I nearly died in between nights at the game fair, and no one would have known. Christ. I'd have been buried in a silage pit somewhere.
Do you have, Callum, your neck of the woods, do you have any of those sort of old weird sports that are synonymous with your neck of the woods? Like that sort of thing?
We used to have pubs that were great. We used to have horseshoes go on down the local pubs, all that sort of stuff.
Is that slang?
No, we used to play horseshoes.
Yeah,
in the,
horseshoes is an East Anglian thing. Yeah.
That was a classic. I used to have all sorts of things like that.
We have a thing called Dwarf in here.
Paul is always a very Essex competitive thing. Pretty much pool tables in every pub, and we got a lot of pubs around this area. I remember there was this one social club that I perfected the technique of putting 50p into the pool table, putting it in just enough that it released the balls, and pulling it back out and never paying for a game of pool. Incredibly satisfying.
Small wins.
And I remember there was this gypsy man that he'd lost one ear and he'd had half of his other ear.
That's a character from Richard's second book.
And he came in the pub and it sort of went a little bit silent, and I was playing pool, and he wanted to play pool with me, probably about 13 years old. And we had a lovely game of pool. And he was a really nice bloke. And then people were like whispering, like, do you know who that is? And do you know who that is? And then some years later, he wound up dead on a roundabout next to a horse that they'd tethered onto it. And somebody killed that nice man. He was apparently a bad...
He was a bad nice man.
A bad man. He was a very bad man. He'd done very bad things, apparently. Yeah. Wound up dead. Someone shot him, dumped him on a roundabout.
Who won the game?
I think we went blow for blow. We did pretty well, actually. We had a good time. I was going to tell you a story about public speaking. You know, I've only ever done public speaking once. I was about 19, 20 in my younger years. Somewhat of a successful carp angler. Caught lots of nice fish.
How do you pangle a car?
Carp.
You what?
Carp.
Oh, carp angler, not a carp angler.
No.
Oh,
Right.
Sorry.
This is pronunciation, love.
Yeah, I don't do words too good.
I just wanted to make someone crash a tractor. That's all I'm trying to do.
I got asked to do a talk in the Midlands. It was at the Beacon Centre for the Blind. And Richard's laughing already. That's ableist, Richard.
Could you not have just recorded it and played it over a speaker?
It's faster than my fingers as well. And so I did this talk, and I didn't realise I was scared of public speaking until I was about 2 hours from doing a talk in front of about 150 people.
Oh, yeah, that happens, yeah.
That had sold out. It was like this slideshow thing, and there was people that were actually, like, genuinely legends in the game. There's a guy, I can't remember who, it was a guy called Lewis Reed, who is just an unbelievable carp angler. He's fished, like, some of the best lakes ever, and caught some historic fish. And then there's little old me that had caught, like, 140-pound carp at the age of like 16, and I did all right afterwards. You know, I was top rod on several lakes, but yeah, I haven't caught the most historic carp in the country like someone like Lewis Reed. So I went on, I did my talk. I also made some really nice graphics. So I had an actual slideshow, and I spoke about catching carp in different places, like how it wasn't, to me, the carp fishing wasn't necessarily about catching a carp catching like the biggest carp, even catching like a 10-pound carp from a river is a big achievement because it's a big piece of water. It's a hard fish to catch. It's hard to target. So to me, it's like the thrill of it, the difficulty. It's not about just catching big carp, although, you know, it's nice to catch a big one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was the point of my talk, and it went down quite well. And the feedback I got afterwards, I drank quite a lot of Havana Club just to get me up on there. I think I did all right. And I just remember, the only feedback I can remember is a guy came up to me, and you'll have to bleep this out, guy came up to me at the bar straight afterwards, and he shook my hand, he went, I thought you were going to be a but actually you were all right. Then he just looked me in the eye, and then he just walked off. And that was it. That was the feedback. I was like...
I mean, as reviews go, I've had worse.
No.
I mean...
That was usually the...
Did he rehearse?
That was a response I got
Did he
from
rehearse
girls.
that in his head beforehand?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's Yorkshire for you, isn't it? You know, they just do that to you, Callum. I once got a girl come up to me, and she fiddled with the badge, my British Field Sports Society badge, and she goes, and it was on a cross-channel ferry to Belgium, and she said, "What's that for?"
This is
Why
the
is that
intro.
so funny?
Record this. This is the intro to your. This is your exciting intro to your romance novel. She was fiddling with my badge.
My British Field Sports Society badge. It was on my jacket. And I said, it's for the British Field Sports Society. And she goes, I used to do the discus when I was at school. And I went, no. I said, that's like track and field. I said, this is the British Field Sports Society. I said, it's a thing of...
You were shooting ducks and that.
Shooting and hunting. And she goes, oh.
Do you like cute animals?
She just went, oh, you cruel. There's going to be no mid English Channel canoodling with you. I just think, oh, that's nice. I used to throw the discus. I should have said, oh yes, absolutely, yes. Me too. I'm a javelin man myself.
Yes. Come and see my yardage.
Yes, exactly. Do you know what? I was thinking the other day about because we know one of the things that I think that CountrySlide is capable of doing, and we're going to put this to the test when we go to the game fair, and obviously we're going to my London book launch in a few days' time. But I think, we're going to do some outside broadcasting, which I know probably will turn poor producer Amy's hair grey because I know it's a lot more work and we've got to try and do all this stuff. But I was thinking, see, you're talking about weird sports in the countryside or in Essex, where people end up dead in a roundabout. And we've got...
Is that a sport?
Well,
It wasn't a sport. It was a murder.
it was a murder.
I just wanted to make that clear.
Sometimes they're the same thing, though.
If you want, I can link it in the show notes, but I think it might lower the
You've not
tone.
been to Merthyr Tydfil. They are the same thing there.
I for years, I thought Merthyr Tydfil was a made-up place. I didn't actually realise it was real.
I know her.
Like Royston Vasey.
Exactly. I genuinely thought it was a made-up place. That one of the Welsh comedians just sort of said, he's in Merthyr Tydfil. And I thought, that's just a made-up name. And I've discovered it was real the other day.
Sounds like a person.
It does, doesn't it? Hello. Yes.
And anything with Royston sounds like a sort of 85-year-old
Well,
man. doesn't it?
Royston Vasey.
Well, it is. Yeah.
Royston Vasey was actually, it was supposed to be where the League of Gentlemen is set and is in Derbyshire. But Royston Vasey is actually Roy Chubby Brown's real name. So that's why they called Royston Vasey was because he said that mainstream BBC TV would never have him on. So the three chaps in the League of Gentlemen went,
Surprising.
I think we will. So therefore it had every single time you watch the Welcome to Royston Vasey when the League of Gentlemen came on. And they also managed to get Roy Chubby Brown as the mayor of Royston Vasey. I mean, it was an absolute work of genius, so they double whammied it. But anyway, I'm thinking about us doing an outside broadcast from a pub called the Geldeston Locks. And the Geldeston Locks is on the River Waveney. And it's on the borders between Suffolk and Norfolk. But it is home.
It's not local to me, then?
No, you would have to stay at my house, which I think would probably be essential because I think after you've been to the Gelderston Locks, you need 2 days off, not work, just off life, because you.
What about that fictionary something suckling pig or whatever that pub was that you kept
The unruly
The
pig.
unruly pig. No, you can't afford to
Was
get drunk.
the
in there.
unruly pig?
It wasn't the unruly pig, was it? No, the Gelderston Locks is the home of Dwyle flonking. Now, have you ever heard of Dwyle flonking? No, it's a genuine thing. So you were saying about how you were throwing Aunt Sally's and all that stuff. Well, Dwyle flonking is a Suffolk sport. Right, now it's got fairly straightforward rules, right, invented at the Gelderston Locks. So there's 2 teams, and we could probably have a CountrySlide team, right? And what you've got to try and do is you've got to hit the opposing team, so you're a flonker if you're in the attacking team, and the team who are defending are called the Girters, right? And what you've got is a beer-soaked cloth, right? So a beer-soaked cloth, which is called your Dwyle, on the end of a stick, right, which is called your driveler, right? And so the Girters have got to dance in a circle, right?
Have you just gone on ChatGPT and
no,
asked
this
it
is-
to
no,
He's having a
This
stroke.
is
He's trying to
true.
describe cricket.
This is what
Can you raise both hands?
what comes up in Suffolk.
Face, arms, speech,
This
time.
is what comes up in Suffolk. And then what you've got to do is you've got to try and
It sounds like you're explaining Quidditch, but you've asked ChatGPT to plagiarise it. And then he catches the golden snip. I mean, he catches the wackle whacker.
It's just inbred noises just
Google-
coming out of him.
Google Dwyle flonking, right?
How do you even spell that?
Well done, my furniture's floating now.
Honestly, you just throw.
Stop this hocus pocus.
You have to dance around and avoid beer-soaked cloths thrown on a stick. And then you get various points in Dwyle flonking for whereabouts you hit your opponent. So if you get what's called a wanton, which is a headshot, that's worth 3 points. A morther is a body hit, that's worth 2 points. And if you get a ripper, which is a leg shot, that gets 1 point. You see, and I reckon we should do an outside broadcast because I bet you there's never been a recording with a sort of John Motson-esque reportage of a commentator doing Dwyle flonking, and we should do this. Go down to the Gelderston Locks, get absolutely rip-roaring drunk, and flonk our Dwyles. Because, I mean, I'm trying to always look for new angles for CountrySlide. And
this is it.
Dwyle flonking is
Annoyingly,
it.
this actually would be good.
Yes.
Yeah,
See, I'm not just here for the good looks and charm, It's the creativity that I bring to CountrySlide.
Yeah, but you're very creative after 2 units. So
That's it.
Yeah.
But look, my whiskey glass is
think,
running out. Christ.
Oh, how terrible. That's basically a hate crime in your area.
a big
Claire
social with lots of pub
Claire!
games.
Claire, would you bring me more whiskey? I can't be funny anymore. I'm starting to talk about Dwyle flonking,
I'm drinking the advance. Get me some whiskey.
Oh, dear. No. So anyway, what else have we got to talk about? We've done Dwyle flonking. We've done...
What about Wicker Man? Has anything happened? Has anyone been attacked by bees or immolated on a Scottish island?
Well,
I just realised.
I have had a similar...
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I have. I have had something like that. I went into a working men's club in Wickersley, which is in South Yorkshire, an old pit village. And 2 terrible things. I committed 2 crimes, which very nearly got me attacked by a bloke called Jammy, right, with a samurai sword. And the first terrible deed I did, because I wasn't a member of the Wickersley Working Men's Club, you had to get like a raffle ticket. You have to pull. When you go into Waitrose and who's going to queue up and go next at the...
I can't afford Waitrose.
Well, I know. I'll just tell you about it so therefore you can bask in the sort of reflected opulence of it.
Tell him a poem
What is
about
it like,
Waitrose.
Richard?
Well, what you do is you
could
Tell
have
us
your-
about the
your-
Waitrose again,
you-
Daddy.
You could have your agent tell us about the Waitrose if you're too busy. Somebody told me off for. They said, "Well, they not lay into you on the last episode."
Yes.
Well,
that's because
get used to it.
They don't like seeing people like me bullied. They want to. No, they don't like it. They don't like it, and
that's the first prize at the Dwal flonking is a framed photo of the Chichester Waitrose.
Anyway, listen. So no, what I did was in this Wickersley Working Men's Club, you have to take a little ticket, and that then, if you're a guest, you then sort of go, so number 32, and then you can go up and you can order a beer, but you're not allowed to cross this line next to the bar if you're not a member. So you have to sort of stand and shout from a distance, which with my accent in South Yorkshire, that went down well, I have to say. And then I bought some raffle tickets for the meat raffle, right?
Oh, meat raffle. Meat raffle's great.
So now I thought, like, you only go to a raffle, you think, well, you're not doing it to win. You're doing it to go and support the cause, which they're ever doing. So I said, I'll have £5 worth, please. Well, this woman looked at me like I'd insulted her, because obviously this was so opulent that I was now matching my accent, which they thought was like dead posh anyway. And stupidly, I won the meat raffle. And I got this cardboard box filled with meat with very little labelling on. You know, I reckon, I'm not prejudging here, but I reckon that was probably caught by a lurcher, and it wasn't skinned very well because a lot of the wool was still on it. But anyway, so I got this thing, and this bloke called Jammy came up to me, and he didn't put me in a wicker sort of man thing to burn me, but he goes, I'm going to have to beat you up now. And I went, why? And he went, because you're posh. And I went, well, that's no reason to beat me up, well, it is round here. And I had to persuade him that he didn't need to kill me, right? And I said to my friend Neil, who I was there with, I said, he's threatened to beat me up for being posh. And he goes, aye, he'll do that. He goes, you're lucky he hasn't got his samurai sword with him. And I went, oh. Do you know, I suddenly realised that I wanted to have a little dog and say, Toto, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore, because it was the most scary place I've ever been to, Wickersley. I've got a very good lurcher from their mind, so that's okay.
So can we just round this episode off with any other stories about people wanting to kill Negus? Because I think it's pretty much gone full circle about...
I think he's recruited 2 more people into that list during this episode.
What? Maybe 5.
Oh, you 2? Oh, God. Honestly.
Well, if I kill you now, we don't have to go to London next week.
Well, or you'd have to go to all flonking. That's what you're just trying to get out of. I think
we can go Dwal flonking without you.
Yeah, I'm up for it.
Well, no, I need to translate, because they're just going to say...
We could interview Paddy Galbraith without you. We can go Dwal flonking without you.
I think what you'll find...
dissimilar, are they?
I wouldn't want to.
No, I can just see all the locals around there and say, I don't believe it. There's some bloke from down in London, because they'd think that Callum came from London, and Chunky Jesus has turned up. I can't believe it. The second coming of Christ and his little disciple. That'd be brilliant. That would make the front cover of the East Anglian Daily Times.
Is it For Your Eyes Only or Diamonds Are Forever, where you've got the 2 hitmen and one's a really big guy and one's a little guy?
Are you thinking about twins?
No, I'm not thinking about twins.
Bloody good film,
that makes
twins.
You Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito.
Happy to
I liked you in Taxi.
Play that role.
Callum. I thought you were very good in that.
I'm trash.
Right. So should we try and bring this one into harbour, as it were? So we've got a little bit extra to go to our patrons, which I'm going to record after this. Mm-hmm. So if you want to hear what that is, you have to go to our Patreon page, which is all in the show notes. Or you can go to our shiny new website, and all the notes are there as well.
Oh, yeah, fancy.
But I'm going to record some extra bits for there, because Callum and I have an announcement about a special project, which you'll all hear about at some point, but the patrons get first dibs.
I didn't know this.
You know what this is?
Oh, I know.
Yes,
yes, I do. Sorry.
Yes, you do. There you go.
Yeah.
Comedy gold.
Richard, are you okay, Richard?
Wow. It's about 20 to 9, Callum. I've got to go and watch the Dwal flonking on Anglia Television. I was on Anglia TV today. Very good. Thank you very much for.
Yes, we watched it. You look like you were doing a storytelling gnome episode.
I know.
As you sat on your log.
They did a really good job,
Didn't they?
surprisingly.
Did you think the photographers?
Professional TV people did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but normally it's like those little sort of segments are just. Ugh. There was a fun cutaway where they film a piece of hedge where you're just. They had a lot of material they probably had to cut down. I can imagine, Amy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Anyway.
they just did a slightly out of focus piece of hedge and had you waffling in the background so they could cut whatever soundbite over the top, which I thought was quite good.
Waffling.
It's also they made you bring a bill hook out to a hedge that you could do sod all to because it was meant to be good habitat. You're not meant to be poking at it in the middle of May.
Although, to be fair,
And you tapped it down.
what I said to them, I said, look, I can't do anything to this because I said, at the end of the day, I shouldn't
Full
be.
of turtle doves, this is.
But they were quite good. They said, oh, don't worry, we'll put the bit in there. We say, well, I can't do a lot to this because we now leave them alone till September, but they cut that bit out. So there'll probably be some, one of them idiots, some right to roam saying, see, if we were looking at this, then they wouldn't go anywhere near that hedge. But anyway,
I've already sent that in. I've sent that complaint in already.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to call yourself
Get in ahead of them.
Moonchild Prideaux. I think you have to change your name to something sort of suitably new age if you're going to do that.
Okay. Right. So we're going to record 2 bits of patrons now because I've got a little story. Right. We're going to go away now. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for the support for the show. Thank you for all the lovely comments we've had recently. If you can review it and you haven't reviewed it already, please do. It really, really, really does help. And if you haven't, share it with your friends. And there's some good stuff in there because we know people are going back through the back catalogue and finding stuff because people are giving me references in real life. And I'm going, I have no idea. Did I say that? Is that something Callum said? Did we actually say that? Is this all a fever dream? Who knows? Anyway, bye-bye.